What is transbank?
You must have seen how UPI has disrupted the entire market globally. I
Right.
think we have a vision that similar to UPI, we would probably look at bringing another product of India which can help the global business to business money movement seamlessly.
Hi, Vaibhav. It's such a joy to have you on Confab.
Hi Monica, thanks a lot. Thank you.
So, Vaibhav, we are meeting after a decade, right? And I've seen so much happening in your space. You've grown so much, and it feels so great to see someone who who has evolved so much and who has grown so much. So, when and why did you decide to become a fintech entrepreneur?
Uh, so thanks. I think so. Honestly, I've been part of something or other throughout my career, right? Or even the acads. So we set up entrepreneurship still during my engineering days in IMT Ghaziabad. So I was always charged up. I used to do a lot of gigs during my engineering days. Doing some paper corrections, supervisions, teaching 11th and 12th students, doing sales for coaching classes and all. So I think we've been through entrepreneurial journey since my childhood at least, and at least me and some of my friends we were quite active even during our MBA and all, right? So I think the thought was always there. We set up something on career counseling, pro bono during our TCS days when I was working for TCS. There were a couple of attempt on the travel segment during my banking stint with SBI. So I think entrepreneurship was always the plan, and yeah, I think probably 2015, 16, I thought, look, the space is good. Uh, Payments, not many people in transaction banking or payments are really aware of that. And of course, at that point of time, the UPI or India stack story was getting built. So part of the banking product team, part of the business team, we always had that insider view about all this India stack, how this entire layer is getting developed. And of course, thoughts used to evolve. I should discuss with some of my team members, some of my friends, and I think lockdown, of course, helped. So a lot of people use lockdown for movies and all. We actually used to create something for our own.
Wonderful. So what was that trigger? So you said lockdown was the trigger, or 2015
Honestly,
was that?
lockdown, I wouldn't say the trigger. Probably lockdown helped us to, settle down on our ideas, forming a team. Because see, as a banker, you don't get time, right? You're typically spending probably 12, 14 hours a day, and even weekends for your BAU. So uh, so I think I would say the trigger, as I said, it's been a gradual journey. At any point of time, we were always thinking in the future, how would we build the organizations. I already had mapped out my people, who's going to be my product guy, who's going to be my implementation guy, who's going to handle operations, who's going to handle general stuff. So I think there was no trigger as such. As I mentioned, it was a very I can't say meticulously planned journey, but yeah, it was very much thought of journey ki boss isko karna hai, timeline dekhenge. That was the
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So do you belong to a business family?
No, of course not. So I mean, there's nothing called as business family these days in India, right? I think most of the population would either do probably something about job or something about business. So while I could say that we're not from the business family, but yeah, my dad also used to run some small business in production. But that doesn't qualify to be a business family person. But
Mm-hmm.
line is blur actually.
Okay. So how did your family react to your decision? Because you were having a high paying job. So suddenly from a high paying job, you're starting something from a scratch. So I'm sure their reaction would be different. So what was their reaction?
See, honestly, reaction. I mean, my parents, they were always aware that apart from, like, for example, when I was in engineering, I was doing 10 other things apart from my engineering, right? And so they were like quite used to hear something else. And of course, so for them, it was quite, regular stuff. They're like, boss, you sure about this? And you thought about this? You have this set of people with you, then they're fine, right? So I think because it was a gradual journey, because a lot of times we had some discussions with my family, my
Hmm.
wife and all. So there was not really a resistance or some kind of a concern, right? कि boss ये कैसे होगा वो कैसे होगा,
हाँ.
and as a banker you don't really and after you get funded, honestly, you solve all those problems what are there for the specific period of building a bootstrap journey. But I think I had planned that very well. When I moved out of banking, I did pretty large assignment on in a fintech, a large consulting assignment I did. So we had covered ourselves financially very well. So that wasn't really the challenge.
कंसर्न.
Yeah.
ओके. तो ये जो ये जर्नी होती है, आई थिंक ये जो पूरी जर्नी होती है, तो यू काइंड ऑफ फील कि आपको काफी सारे टफ लेसन्स, यू काइंड ऑफ सी सम टफ लेसन्स, यू काइंड ऑफ लर्न सम टफ लेसन्स एज यू मूव फॉरवर्ड. सिंस यू वर सेइंग कि यू आर प्रीटी एक्टिव, आप कॉलेज में यू आर डूइंग मल्टीपल गिग्स, फिर टीसीएस में भी. सो आई थिंक आप आपका जो जर्नी है इसमें काफी सारे टफ लेसन्स भी आपने सीखे होंगे, तो कुछ उसके बारे में भी थोड़ा सा बता दीजिए.
See, I think it's very difficult in India, especially because the way your acads are, or the way the entire education system is built.
राइट.
So it's very difficult to challenge the status quo. And actually, that's one toughness I think we had learned long time ago, that you'll have to, of course, challenge status quo and probably walk an extra mile. And of course, people, there'll be some concerns about how uh, this is gonna work, whether it's gonna work. So when we used to work with this coaching class, there used to be a lot of these risk points, right? We used to manage so much of cash. We used to do so many admission sales calls, and uh, there used to be risks, right? But I think probably what we'll have to do, and globally, I think the way the systems are evolved, because they're more of a practical knowledge. There's more of a, do something and probably take some internship, take some uh, whatever there are various terms they use, right? Co-op and something, right? I think in India, honestly, if you're doing that, probably 6 to 8 years of your post graduation or graduation total after 10th, you really study. I mean, I don't see the fun in that. You have to be tough. You have to spend some time, of course, with your friends, and that's why I think if you've got friends who are your business partners, nothing like it.
अंडरस्टूड. राइट. सो व्हाट इज द वन की हाईलाइट ऑफ योर एंटायर जर्नी?
I think one key highlight is a difficult question, honestly. Uh, there've been many, right? But if I have to talk about one, um, so I think probably I've been touchwood. I've been successful in building the trust or relationships with around various number of my clients or my banks, right? So, and that's probably the biggest asset what we have as a team, right? I would have pretty much of strong support from these banks or these large financial institutions and BFCs, because the kind of consistent trust we've built over last 12 or 13 years of my banking career. So people actually sometimes blindly trust, right? So that's probably the one highlight which I think. I mean, I don't really enjoy those awards and all which people talk about, but I think this one thing predominantly helps me to keep going. So tomorrow, if I have to do anything, I know that these are this probably 50 or 100 people. I can just count on them. I just have to talk to them. Hey, look, this is a new idea. You guys can do this way. Let's try. Right. So I think that's one highlight probably which I've been, and now of course the numbers are increasing. Right. The more people we connect to, more people get added to your people whom you can call upon on a Sunday afternoon and have a chat. Right.
I understand. So what is TRANSBNK?
So, as I was mentioning initially, we had seen this space of transaction banking. Uh, Typically, thanks to Demon, thanks to COVID and so many other initiatives by government, the retail payments really flourished, right? I think you must have seen UPI. Everybody talks about it. But I think that actually, while the numbers are phenomenal, overall when you see banking transactions, that's a very small fraction or small percentage of the entire ecosystem, right? The
Right.
entire banking globally is very large on B2B transaction, that is business to business transaction, right? And over there, when we were banker, we used to explore this partnership with a lot of fintechs or a lot of tech companies, but we never really found a good infrastructure partner who would solve our problems, right? So that's where I think Transbank was originated. We understand, and it's a very domain heavy, complex, compliance heavy, system. It's more than technology. You have to know the entire subject well. You should actually understand how the regulations would play eventually after 4 months down the line, right? So I think Transbank solves that problem for various ecosystem players, including banks, NBFC lenders, fintech, startups, and even the certain other large corporates. We don't really have a retail customer base. We of course have a very good set of largest of the banks, largest of the large NBFCs. And touchwood, within the first year, we started working with more than 10 large banks and more than 10 large NBFCs, top 10s, right? So I think this is about helping them to build the business to business transaction infra, how money moves, track the money, use the AIML for, how efficiently and how quickly and how, within the regulatory balance, how would you able to move the money. And you must have seen how UPI has disrupted the entire market globally. I
Right.
think we have a vision that similar to UPI, we would probably look at bringing another product of India which can help the global business to business money movement seamlessly. That's the end goal, honestly, and working towards it. Uh, that's
Understood.
very brief story.
What's so special about it?
So as I mentioned, the team, of course, me and my founders, all four of us being from core transaction banking and having extremely, deep expertise, deep relationships, and also the team which we have built subsequently with us, and of course the advisory board members. So I think the team is as strong as it can get, right? I mean, touchwood, one thing, as I was mentioning about my clients or my banking partners, similar to that, my entire team is the special thing about it. I mean, anybody you can talk to, he would be the sales guy. Next hour, he can talk to him. He's a product guy. And of course, we we all are being engineers, so we can code. I mean, at least we
Okay.
can understand the databases and we understand the APIs, right? So I think everybody can wear multiple hats. Everybody's highly motivated, aligned to the vision, and that's, I think, one thing which is pretty much special about Transbank.
So did you code yourself?
I did, but not for Transbank, honestly. But in the past, I did, of course. For Transbank, I think a couple of times I used to just, for fun, I used to have a look at how exactly code is written, Postman. I mean, we've been trying to push my entire non-tech team also to learn how Postman works, and we've been conducting some interesting sessions.
Mhm.
I mean, and I want my code to be stable. That's why I don't want to code.
Okay. So, when you discovered this idea and when you looked at building your team, um, what were the initial challenges that you faced?
So honestly, the biggest issue is how do you really take care of the uh, monthly bills of the team, right? Of course. I mean, for me, I had planned it.
Ask me.
I'm sure. So I think for in my case, of course, I had a good window of around probably 10 months where we were building a bootstrap journey. Uh, I think one of the challenge, of course, was to look at how do we, and this is new. This is a category creation in itself, right? So there are
Hmm,
no, unfortunately, the investor worlds work on the formula-based learning typically, right? So if you are this of
absolutely.
India, or your let's say Stripe of India, or your Plaid of India, whatever. So uh, this was category creation. This was very difficult subject. Nobody had built that, and again we did not see that the timing was not in our favor. When we started, it was like complete stories around how this fintech and startup funding has spoiled the market in zone 21. 22 was like downfall. I think the challenge was, of course, to look at how do we take care of these tech salaries or some of the other senior management salaries.
Hmm, hmm,
I
hmm,
think,
hmm.
but yeah, the human capital network which we had built in the past helped, and we quickly did a seed round of $1 million. And of course, after that, I think Touchwood, we've been growing because it's more the people you add in the organization, your number of clients, your number of products implemented, and your revenue multiplies. That's the idea.
Right. Absolutely. So when, could you share the highlight of your pitch to your investors for seed funding? So how did they get convinced? Because you said it was such a
honestly it
challenging.
was honestly most of the investors were they actually they used to know either of the founder. I mean, uh,
Okay.
bulk of them used to know me very well. Some of them have been telling me that boss tu kuch bhi chalu kar हम पैसे डालेंगे, right? So, and the investor which we got, I met him in one of the fintech forum. That's another thing. You talked about the hard part of the journey, right? I used to visit a lot of these fintech events or startup events. A lot of time we used to disturb the work, or maybe very tiring travel some days. So one of the events I met my existing VC. We had a very good conversation, and yeah, I think pretty much it was quite natural what we're trying to build, uh, and the kind of background we have. Typically, these are the two things what we discuss with the existing VCs as well as the other VC community friends we have, right? So probably we try
Okay.
to give them a glimpse about how exactly this is being built, and uh, of course, if it clicks, it's
So how big is the market that you're envisaging?
so this is actually I mean, this is like old data of 2020-21, where this was $1 trillion market, right? So one of the massive market, as I mentioned, the retail payments, what you see in terms of UPI or payment gateways, it's a very small subset of the overall banking ecosystem, right?
Right.
Transaction banking is a very massive business. It's $1 trillion kind of a market. And if we talk about India per se, we should look at around 150 billion dollars of market, right? Because there's so much to do in lending, in supply chain finance, in co-lending, cross-border transactions. Everywhere, I think you will see transactions. So it's all about transactions. The moment it is B2B transactions, we should be able to do something about making their life easy. So
So how are you adding different layers of security, and how are you making everything encrypted to make this process seamless for your clients?
So I think the idea over here is most of the times the information security and all these principles are missed out by fintechs, right? So when we used to pick and choose the partners as a banker, what we used to look at. So there are two ways basically the information security or these compliances are made. One, of course, by having a very strong subject matter expertise, and second,
Hmm.
of course, the guy. So I think one thing which I always used to believe, even since my early entrepreneurship days, is you need to have an expert to handle some of the critical functions, right? So when we used
Right.
to do a very small activity in this education space, we used to actually talk to the qualified career counselor rather than somebody who's done probably IIT, say engineering, right?
हाँ बिल्कुल बिल्कुल.
So I think that's one principle we've been following. So the lawyer what we have is a Supreme Court lawyer. He's one of the best in industry.
Wow.
Our CHRO, she used to be CHRO for a couple of very large organizations. One of the MNC organizations, she used to be the CHRO. Similarly, the information security guys are ex-bankers. The CTO himself is a 20 years experienced guy in technology. So while my product team and I have a complete control on the product or information security concept or domain, so there are 3 or 4 layers internally within our team where you understand that this multi-level architecture will ensure that at one point of time we'll be able to thwart the possible attack. And the CISO guy, again, one of the ex-banker consulting CISO, not a full-time CISO, but he's phenomenally well, right? So he's been doing this for banks. As a current assignment also, he's working for a lot of large banks. I think idea is always to keep these experts and of course keep a tab on this with the domain expertise or subject matter expertise, review them regularly. So in fact, the calendar actually funny stuff is every day there's a call with this CISO guy. I don't know why. I attend it only once a week. It seems they discuss something about information security every day. I don't know why, but I attend that every week. So
Okay.
yeah.
So what is CISO? I don't know anything
So
about it.
basically, the information security, there is a person called as Chief Information Security Officer, right? So
Okay. Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
most of the banks will have that. So I'm so sorry. I think being a banker, sometimes you get into this abbreviations, right?
No,
So
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
like CEO. Everybody knows CEO, but
Yeah.
nobody would know CISO.
Right, right, right. Okay, great. So, I kind of want to know a little bit more about this blockchain. I think that's one of the frameworks that your company is working on. So, could you tell what is blockchain?
Uh, so first of all, it's not cryptocurrency, it's not Bitcoin. A lot of time people will say, "Oh, blockchain, you guys work on Bitcoin." Like, boss, Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is not blockchain, right? So, and I mean, people can claim that whatever they can have all claims about their this entire segment and all. But I think the best part about blockchain is it's fondly or very simply put, it's called as DLT or distributed ledger technology, right? So idea over here is when we talk about so much of information security, uh, but I think a lot of time what happens is because of these protocols, it's really difficult to then use the data for analytics or maybe create a marketplace or create a platform, right? Now, with blockchain, actually, it comes that additional level of information security. Uh, but the best part is it's the transactions are immutable, right? So you can't once written, you can't change it, right? So it provides you immutability. You can have a composability feature. You can add some of the data points. So when you look at making an impact over a longer time in this complex B2B or cross-border transactions, a lot of times these things are required to take care of the underlying compliance reasons, right? So, for example, let us say you do a digital signature, right? You may not really tomorrow get into the court cases, and you may that it's not like for whatever cases you see with the forgery in signature. Similarly, when you get into a digital world, the digital footprint will definitely needs to be captured and saved somewhere with the complete trail, with complete immutability, right? And of course, then there are various such use cases around these, keeping these records, which eventually you can because these are transactions which are into the millions and billions of dollars, right? So it actually creates a lot of thrust on the platform, right? And then there are multiple ecosystem parties in the scenarios, like for example, real estate, right? The RERA, you must know about the RERA Act.
Right,
There are
absolutely.
several use cases where you have multiple parties, but the underlying record or underlying transaction is not really controlled by all of them. Two parties are controlling or the other party is not controlling, right? In all these scenarios, blockchain really helps. And of course, there are a lot of use cases, but we work on some of them where we use one of these features and then try to solve the particular use case around, let's say, asset tokenization is one case, and of course I mentioned about radar, right? So idea is these 3-4 things about blockchain makes it unique. And CBDC, you must have heard about CBDC, entire government focus, everything is thriving on CBDC these days. A lot of countries, CBDC is powered by blockchain architecture. So I think over here in India right now we're not using that, but eventually the principle, underlying principle is the same thing, right? It has to be digital, it has to be immutable, and it has to be kind of a composability factor should be added to the architecture. So
So great. So for a
I don't know whether it made sense to
yes,
listen, but yeah,
yeah. So I'm asking from a layperson's point of view. So how do they comprehend blockchain?
you'll have to look at the use case and then comprehend, right? As I mentioned, a very simple thing probably to look at is that let's suppose you are putting a asset, right? For example, FD, fixed deposit, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And you have a fixed deposit in a particular bank,
Right.
and you are, let's say, doing a shopping, and now your credit card is not working. I mean, that's also one scenario where only 4 or 5 CR people are working. You don't have a credit card, right? So how do you then create a lien on this particular asset, and then create a instant BNPL or buy now pay later or instant lending transaction form factor? That is possible. Typically, you must have seen OD against FD kind of a thing. But
Right.
that's typically possible when you are using the same organization lending tool and same organization FD. But these days there are so many banks and so many organizations provide you FDs also, or any asset, right? Gold. So I think the use case what probably I can explain is that then the blockchain eventually will help you, or it is helping to lean mark first of all to identify whether you have got the, let's say, FD in as Yes Bank. If you have the FD in Yes Bank, you can lean mark that FD in Yes Bank, and then you can actually issue the credit card or whatever buy now pay later limit to that particular user. You don't require a same platform, right? Because ultimately at the architecture end there would be multiple uh, lenders or multiple such players would be existing. The best part is, these solutions are also been deployed. The solution what I mentioned about this is asset tokenization. This could also be deployed by marketplaces, right? So somebody like Policy Bazaar, Paisa Bazaar, they have got amazing marketplace concept.
Right.
But the issue in marketplaces typically then, of course, is your information is available to the man in the middle, right? Eventually,
Right.
the organizations control a lot of data, and then there is a concept of personal data protection bill which is coming up. So how do you solve that? That's where blockchain would come into the picture. Your data is completely secured. There's a zero knowledge proof where you can use that zero knowledge proof. You can do your transaction. Your data is completely secure. Only the party only knows that, look, this guy has an asset, and once he consented architecture, you'll be able to lean mark and then get that particular loan or get that particular transaction done, right? So this is a classic case where you can understand without blockchain, this is not possible. Right? Or without blockchain, it is possible, but somebody has to then collate and work on so much of aggregation business. But then he is the aggregator, and then how do you then control that he doesn't become a rogue, right? So manually,
right.
So imagine blockchain is one technology which solves these kind of things. It gives you the efficiency or the use the way you want, with complete security, right? Complete information security, complete control on your data.
So you have to create a user ID, or you have to buy this. Like, for example, someone like me wants to use
So
this
honestly,
blockchain.
this is like a underlying technology, right? As a individual or as a layman, you may not really feel it. It's a APIs or blockchain. These are like virtual layers, right? You not really feel them. It's like oxygen. Wo hai,
Right.
you can't really see that, right? So you really don't have to look at how your credit card got issued or how your buy now pay later limit got issued. At the end of the day, it would have been backed by a blockchain framework.
Understood.
And
Understood.
I think that's where cryptocurrencies probably work, right?
Hmm.
So I'm not a expert on cryptocurrencies. I don't really have a big view or big fan follower myself about it, but it works on the blockchain forum, right? So imagine any time of the day, you can trade anywhere. There are probably tens of thousands of maybe lakhs of people trading on a particular platform. And over here, if you see in any stock exchange, there are so many restrictions, time restrictions, reconciliation, so on and so forth, right? Blockchain actually enables this entire cryptocurrency framework, right? So there are various use cases, as I mentioned: central bank digital currency, which is CBDC, cryptocurrency, asset tokenization, and every field actually these days is getting used. It's getting popular, probably day by day.
So that's a reason it is going to bring more transparency in the fintech space.
Honestly, transparency, it will bring a lot of agility and speed and
Okay.
user functionality, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
It actually controls the security threats, or it actually controls the issues about having too much of transparency probably. So
Okay. Understood. So there is this thing that's coming up, and there's a lot of discussion also happening. The way UPI was a big revolution, so they are saying that ONDC is also going to be a big revolution. Do you have anything to contribute here on
so
ONDC?
again, so I'll tell you, probably when we started discussing today, I mentioned about the India stack or digital public infrastructure, right?
Right.
Now, the objective with which this was formed in 2009-10, I was in my MBA days and SBI, State Bank of India, at that point of time. And again, we were fortunate to understand how this Aadhaar rails were built at that point of time. Aadhaar-based payments were being built by our teams. So I think the entire focus of government or the Nandan Nilekani and his wonderful team was to democratize this each and every public type of a public infrastructure. So
Understood.
there was a, first of all, they built a complete consensus layer, which is Aadhaar, e-sign, e-stamp. All these things were not there initially, right? Your Aadhaar itself was not there, and Aadhaar getting it linked to various things, right? So they build a layer. Then they build a paperless layer, which I mentioned about e-signing and all, right? So that you'll be able to get the digital footprint very fast, right? And after paperless, they went to the cashless layer, which is where the UPI and entire story will come up. So idea was that this particular thing shouldn't be a function of a very few number of banks or a very few fintechs, right? It has to be democratized, right? So in the
Right.
similar way, if you look at the other problem statement, uh, which was on the e-commerce, right? E-commerce is
Right.
flourishing like anything, and it's become part and parcel of our lives, right? We can't really survive without ordering the groceries or electronic goods or even food, right? So e-commerce has
Right.
become so much of a, you can't say commodity, but it's become part of your daily lifestyle, right? The way payments,
Yes.
I mean, you can't really survive without making a payment, right? So similarly, you can't really survive without e-commerce now, of course,
Hmm.
especially after COVID.
Right.
So then that's where again the team or the government initiatives were again having same focus, that how do we democratize this, right? Because this was eventually uh, dominated a few players. They used to have the entire system is based out of uh, based out of some Bangalore location, 4 5 fintechs and all. But eventually the suppliers were pan India, the
Hmm.
the buyers were pan India, right?
Right.
So what this ONDC essentially does is that it actually democratizes and connects these suppliers to the various infrastructure players, connects its buyer to various infrastructure players, and they bring them onto a unified platform so that it doesn't monopolize the entire e-commerce flow. It helps you to then get the best possible uh, best optimum rate for the seller, and And of course, the entire process also manages and brings transparency because it is now audited, controlled. There are banks getting into it to manage the transaction flow. It's a very fascinating thing, right? But the core principle remains the same. How do we democratize this, right? So
Understood.
an entire digital public infrastructure has become one of the unique thing about India, and the way UPI is getting implemented in various countries. Probably even ONDC will look at expanding that way.
Right. So is again Indian technology going global?
More than technology, I think it's a philosophy, or it's a
Hmm.
concept, right?
Hmm.
How do we democratize things? How do we keep this? And see, honestly, this is not a one particular product, right? The way entire India stack or digital public infrastructure has been built, it's phenomenal, and it
Right.
started right from 2009. And as I mentioned, each and every layer which has contributed to this. And of course, there are a few more things like account aggregator uh, or OCEN or Open Credit Enhancement Network. So there are various things are being built in a similar concept. And good part is that it actually involves a lot of bankers, a lot of government bureaucrats, a lot of tech guys, and of course volunteers. And so they actually can identify the exact need and then they build a product instead of first building a product and then testing the market. The product, the entire group or the think tank itself is working on whether do we uh, whether do we build this and why do we build this. Democratization is required, of course. So doesn't need to be monopolized by a few players, right? So
Wonderful. Great. What keeps you going?
I think so. I think as I mentioned, right, it's an ongoing process, and probably uh, any. I think even in my banking career, barring a few last few months of my banking career, I always used to love my Monday mornings. So I think mostly Monday morning people talk about Monday blues and all. I'm usually excited on Monday morning that hey, it's gonna be a very exciting week, and probably going back to the same story, I think it's the people around you, right? So your team, your clients, your bank partners, your family, and your friends. Of course, I mean, I'm so much of a people person. Probably that helps me, right? So any meeting I have, I don't have to do the weather talks, or I don't have to do the typical British weather talks, right? I would know where the guys interests are. We talk about music, I can talk about languages, right? I think people is what ultimately keeps me inspired. Hey, look, you can actually make life better for these guys, right? And a lot of my team members, a lot of my guys who are there with me, part of my team since last 7 8 years, uh, they've really grown well, and that's one thing where I am very proud of. I want to ensure that I changed life of hundreds of such people. I mean, that again will give you different kind of a joy. And when a guy working for me, in fact, couple of them bought new cars in last 3 4 months. I haven't got my new car yet, so I'm very happy.
Wow,
I'd be
that's
very happy if
incredible.
I get a new car. But when they can buy a new car, their families are happy, they're happy. I think that's where you can make the impact. Uh, Otherwise it's always a BAU job, right? You can always have so many jobs in India, US, abroad. Uh, I think this is where you get more chance to make better impact to people around you.
So is there any creative side to you?
I am not. I can't call it creative, but of course I can. I know most of the Indian languages, so I can read, write, speak some of them, and I enjoy my time in those hobbies, right, related to languages. So most of the times I will be to Tamil music, Telugu movies, some random Malayalam music or movies, right? I tend if there's any new language I want to learn, I'll get into that.
So you are a polyglot.
I don't know what's the word. But yeah, I think probably most of the times that keeps me quite. It's like a stress buster for me. So, and then more movies you watch, more songs you listen to, your vocabulary increase, your knowledge increases. Like A lot of times I take inferences from these movies and dialogues and songs and throw it on my team. Look, this is one thing I learned new today from this Tamil movie, whatever.
So how many languages do you know?
I don't know. I mean, most of the languages I pick up well. Apart, I think Kannada is one language I don't really pick up well. I want to learn Kannada also, but most of the other languages I'm quite excited about. I can Marathi, Gujarati is of course by default. Tamil, I can read, write, speak. Telugu,
Wow.
Malayalam. So Punjabi, everybody in India knows. I think more than Hindi, we speak Punjabi these days, I feel. And yeah, I think Bengali again. I'm very fond of bong slangs, and I can speak. So, yeah, I think most of the languages I pick up very easily. So you again, so it brings back to the people, right? So it helps to talk to anybody in his language and understand that culture, how festivals are celebrated over there. Who's the super? I think good part is after Netflix and all, everybody started understanding at least the movie part of South India. But I used to be a big fan even since my engineering days.
Okay, incredible. That's great. So, what is your message for the budding entrepreneurs and business leaders?
This is always the most difficult question I
I know.
So I think this is not only about entrepreneurship or your careers. I think as I mentioned initially, it's very tough to actually kind of take a different path and do what somebody else is not doing. But I think probably India or Indian entrepreneurs or even Indian students, employees, everybody needs to start you know learning the various aspects about uh, you know uh, things happening around you, right? I mean, you need to be uh, doing more practical stuff rather than the same old study slash job slash thing. That if you're working in a particular job, it doesn't mean that you can't really attend a particular new course or a new seminar or new event, right? I mean, nobody stops you for that. You can't really take up another job, of course, if you're doing a job. but nobody will stop you from learning or volunteering. Maybe doing some very interesting course about, let's say, blockchain or data analytics. Right? People don't do that. People would do their. A lot of people, of course, now are doing it, but most of the people will look at, अरे यार मैं घर जाता हूँ 8 बजे, फिर मैं सो जाता हूँ, मैं Netflix देखता हूँ, मैं Amazon Prime देखता हूँ. Nothing wrong with that also. But the point is, you have to find time for these activities, which will eventually, help you to uh, grow in your respective professional careers. For entrepreneurs, of course, you have to be brutally, honest about everything you do. You have to be very compliant these days. The kind of ecosystem, the way you are seeing around you, you have to ensure that you don't get into some existential crisis because of something exciting or some very lucrative thing you see and somebody else is doing, right? So don't go by that. There are experts in the market for each and everything. you know Take their help, take their advice, but do not really venture into these kind of lucrative things or non-compliance thing. And that's where again I coming back to my original message, that be on a constant lookout to learn something from somewhere, right? One Saturday spent in a particular conference may not really hurt you, right? You can always binge watch your next Netflix series on next Saturday, right?
Right, incredible. So here comes the last part of our conversation. Um, Very interesting and very, very tricky one. So this is opposites. So one word for these words, which is opposite.
Okay.
Funding,
Bootstrapped.
coaching,
Learning.
banking.
You can't really not have banking. Banking is ubiquitous. Yeah, banking is you can't. It's like oxygen. There's no opposite of oxygen. Carbon dioxide, right? So
Okay, agility.
uh, Agility. That is tricky. So I am usually agile and hustling, but probably agility. Um Opposite to agility, I don't think I'm allowed to take so much of time, right? Laziness, probably. I don't know. Laziness.
Okay. Volatile.
Stable.
Journey.
Celebration. A one moment celebration against journey.
Roadblock.
I think the opposite of roadblock should be journey.
Right. So it was lovely having this amazing, insightful conversation with you, Vaibhav. I think a lot of things our viewers will definitely get to learn, right from blockchain to ONDC and many more things from the B2B transaction space. Because all of us think that UPI is huge because there is so much talk happening in terms of the graphs coming up, where the growth numbers and the big landscape that we are discussing. But you're saying it's just the minuscule part of the entire ecosystem. So imagine what a big step you have taken to revolutionize this space. I think it's a proud moment for all Indians that we are making a lot of things as a Make in India product. I think it's a great step. We wish you all the success and thank you so much for being on this show.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. It was nice talking to you after a long time. Let's catch up soon.
Thank you.